Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. So exciting news, DC Rebirth #1 just dropped. Geoff Johns is effectively fixing the DC universe. So I'm going to explain what's going on with Flash, Superman, Batman Rebirth. Pretty much every character in the Justice League is getting a Rebirth title. Each of the other Justice League Rebirth characters will happen pretty soon. Flash Rebirth #1, Superman Rebirth #1, Batman Rebirth #1. They'll all drop in the next couple of weeks, but effectively think of it as a retuning of all the characters. The thing I really like about this is that it puts the Flash at the center of the DC universe again, in the same way he was at the center of the universe during Flashpoint, which I know kind of gets into Flash TV show stuff. It's all so much fun how this weaves together, even though technically the comics are slightly different from the TV shows. So what the hell is going on? Everybody's freaking out because DC changed a bunch of its continuity. Rebirth isn't as complicated as it sounds. If you haven't been reading comics a whole bunch, don't worry, you don't have to go back and read a bunch of old comics, but you can if you really want to. But what happened in the last 10 years is that DC editorial decided that as a way to help new readers get excited about comics, they wanted to make it really simple, so they just said, okay, all of this continuity pre-Flashpoint does not exist anymore. And that was like editorial hitting a hard reset button on the backstories of all of its characters. So any of the adventures that you read from the 80s or the 60s or the 90s or even the early 2000s, as of the beginning of the New 52, technically none of those things happened. Even inside DC editorial, it was a very controversial decision because you're basically saying that like all of these comics, thousands and thousands of stories and characters, their lives did not matter before the New 52. On a creative level, what it seemed like the New 52 was doing a darker take on the characters, just making it darker, grittier. Within a couple weeks, a giant portion of longtime comic book fans gave it a hard pass, just said, these are not the characters that I love, I'm not reading this anymore. And a lot of that was reflected in like the business financial side of things. Like they just did terribly on a financial level. So DC did the Andrew Garfield to Tom Holland Spider-Man thing where you do a quick refresh in a very short amount of time and say, okay, let's fix this. Geoff Johns kind of rides in with his Green Lantern ring and his Superman cape and fixes everything by doing the same thing for all of DC's characters that he had done with the Flash previously, like bringing back Barry Allen in Flash Rebirth, doing the same thing with Green Lantern. So I know I'm blowing a lot of smoke up Geoff Johns' butt, but he's not the only person that worked on this. There were a lot of other people involved, a lot of creative people, a lot of artists, a lot of writers. So through a big twist in DC Rebirth #1, Geoff Johns reintegrates 80 plus years of DC history into modern continuity. So if you've been reading comics for a long time, and if you remember Crisis on Infinite Earths during the 80s, how it tuned a bunch of DC continuity, they killed off a bunch of characters, and they combined a couple backstories, Rebirth is making it so that all those things are canon now. Now that doesn't mean that you need to go back and read all 80 plus years of comics. Rebirth itself is a great place to start reading comics. It might be a little confusing, but Geoff Johns is a pretty good writer, so he's pretty easy to pick up if you have no idea who the characters are. But the thing that most people are talking about online, people that have read the comic, if you haven't read it, I'm going to talk about a few spoilers, so just careful for DC Rebirth spoilers. There are a couple of characters involved, a couple of twists in the story. So the thing everyone's talking about is the return of the classic version of Wally West, the really goofy one with the yellow costume and the red hair. He's this disembodied voice, he's stuck in the Speed Force, and he's trying to come back. He notices that something is wrong with the universe, someone fundamentally changed something, and everything went to shit. So it's like saying that the New 52 was a really bad dream, but the bigger twist is finding out who's responsible for that. And I'll say careful for spoilers one more time, just in case you haven't read DC Rebirth. Okay, so the big twist is that it's Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen. If you haven't read Watchmen or you haven't seen the movie, at the end of that story, he goes on this really existential journey about, like, what does it mean to be human? What am I right now? So as he goes off to Mars to be by himself and think about life, humanity, the universe, and everything, he starts to experiment with universes to see what would happen if I were to take hope away from the DC universe. So what DC Rebirth is saying is that Dr. Manhattan sucked all the hope out of the DC universe just as an experiment to see what would happen to all the heroes. So the New 52 is effectively hopeless, which I think is just hilarious. So DC Rebirth is an attempt to correct that. So it's not a reboot of the characters, it's just a way to say they're going to try and fix the mistakes of Dr. Manhattan. But I think what we're all hoping is they don't turn Dr. Manhattan into the big bad, like it isn't Dr. Manhattan versus the DC universe, because he's not an evil character, so we don't really know how the story's going to play out. This is how it started, this is the reason they decided to do Rebirth, but it's a huge event, so I recommend you all check it out. It's way more interesting than what they're doing with Captain America right now. Marvel just dropped a new Captain America comic. There was also a very big WTF twist that I'm not going to spoil right now, but people are going crazy online. But what's happening later tonight is I'm posting my Arrow finale video after that airs. Be sure to subscribe to get that video. There is going to be a new round of the giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this video. And because there's so much DC, Rebirth, Flash finale stuff happening, I'm going to go ahead and crown a giveaway winner from last night. I'm just going to do extra DC giveaways this week just because so much awesome stuff is happening. Congratulations to the latest giveaway winner, Zach T. Be sure to private message me on the back end of my channel so I can get your contact details. That's just on the About page. So I'll remind everyone about the new round of the giveaway whenever I post that Arrow video tonight. So even if you haven't been watching Arrow this season, I would recommend you check it out. Finales and premieres are always a huge deal. And without giving Flash finale spoilers away, because some of you might not have watched that yet, I'm not expecting what happened in the Flash finale to completely wipe the slate clean for all the other TV shows, but there will be ripples and consequences felt as a result of what Barry did. So I'll talk more about that in my Arrow video later tonight. So while you guys wait for that Arrow finale video to post tonight, you can click here for my Flash finale video. I talk a little bit about what's going on in Season 3. And you can click here for my Flash Season 3, Supergirl Season 2 promo video. They're teasing a big 4-way crossover. It's going to be awesome. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.